masks. As we're kind of approaching this next phase, we're just trying to be as cautious as possible. So I'm Molly Williams. Welcome to Innovate Newport. This is our 7th session of the Blue and You, Understanding Our Blue Economy. Today's focus is on blue tech, and we have a fabulous panel of experts up in front of you. I'm going to start by introducing our moderator, Annette Tonti. She is the managing director of RIHub, which is Rhode Island's Innovations Hub. Over the past 20 years, she has founded 3 high-tech startups and raised over $30 million from venture and angels in our region. She is a pioneer in the online advertising and mobile markets. Early in her career, she worked with Fortune 1000 businesses, ran a global program for the MIT Media Labs, and headed up operations for a global telecommunications consultancy. She is a recognized leader at the intersection of technology and business model possibilities. Her strengths including helping global corporations to work with startups to solve innovation priorities. Thank you so much, Annette, in advance for being the moderator. I'm going to hand her the mic, and she's going to introduce our other panelists as well as start the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. This is a great program, and I'm really excited to be here today. By the way, so what I'm doing now, compared to all that bio stuff, is the most favorite stuff I've ever done in my life, which is I get a chance to work every day with startups. People like Keedell that are actually entrepreneurs trying to do something and change the economy in Rhode Island. That's very exciting. So onwards to a little bit about RIHub. But first, before I do that, I'm just going to tell you about this group, and we're going to hear their bios as we get to them. Next to me is Jason Kelly. He's the Executive Vice President of Moran Shipping, and also you're going to hear a little bit more about him. He actually founded See Ahead and is doing some amazing things. Christian Cowan, who is the Executive Director of 401 Tech Bridge. Many folks here know Christian pretty well. And Erik Brine, the Director of Defense R&D Initiatives at URI, and most recently has left another role from the National Institute for Undersea Vehicles, which you're going to hear a little bit about. So this is a rock star group. I'm humbled to be here with these guys. A little bit about RIHub, just as a quick one. So we are a regional hub for innovation. We're the very first innovation campus. Back in 2016, you all that voted in 2016 voted yes to a bond to actually put money together for innovation campuses here in Rhode Island. 401 Tech Bridge is a campus, and so is RIHub. So we are sister brother organizations. We do a lot. Most notably, we help high-tech, high-potential growth startups. So restaurant, people, that's an entrepreneur, that's lovely. We actually, send them off to somewhere else, but we handle a very specific type of high-tech venture. All of these things are things that we do, including a number of things like connecting up investors with high-tech startups. So the point being, I've done this 3 times. One of the biggest problems we have here is getting the capital you need, getting the talent you need, getting the location, all of those things. So those are the things we attend to. So now, enough about RIHub. Let's get on with the show here and talk about See Ahead. And I'm going to introduce Jason to you, and he's going to set it up for us. We do want this to be an interactive conversation. We want to hear from you. But I think what we're going to do is ask you to wait for a little bit until we actually get through these presentations. So Jason is the Executive Vice President of Moran Shipping. He focuses his energy on open innovation through mergers and acquisitions and directs his passion for the ocean health through the support of blue tech startups. He works to solve ocean sustainability challenges. And as an active member of the global maritime community, Jason participates on several industry boards where he's an advocate for green ports and shipping and smart ocean planning. He strongly supports the industry's best practice and innovations in environmental stewardship, which is really all connected up here. In 2018, Jason co-founded See Ahead. See Ahead's actually getting to be quite a well-known organization here in Rhode Island as well as Boston. Actually, we have a couple people in the audience that came in second at the challenge, which is pretty interesting. He's a longtime resident and enthusiast of Providence, Rhode Island. He volunteers locally as a board member for RI Commerce. Many of you know how they work. And also GrowSmart, Rhode Island. He's a member of the Dean's Advisory Council, URI Graduate School of Oceanography, and the chair of Providence Harbor Management Commission. He's a member of the Mystic Aquarium President's Advisory Board and a member of the Narragansett Bay Propeller Club. He's got an MBA from Middlesex University in shipping and logistics, London, and a Bachelor's of Business from Boston College. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you and hand you the clicker.
Is this working? Great. I really apologize for the length of that bio. Molly, you were supposed to cut that. We talked about that. Great to see everybody. So my job is to set the table today. And I've got 12 slides that I have to get through in 6 or 7 minutes. So here we go. We're going to go through them and hopefully have a great discussion today. All right.
I'm going to hack the clock on you.
All right, great. So we can't talk about blue tech without talking about the star of the show, and that's the planet. And we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but I think sustainability is such a key part of looking at the blue economy and looking at blue tech. 70% of the world is ocean. Over 50% of the Earth's oxygen is generated by the ocean. Over 1 billion people rely on the ocean as their primary source of protein. And when you look at the global explosion in population, you understand about sustainable fisheries and how important that is. 80% of global trade is via the ocean, which is my business. When you see those ships coming up and down Narragansett Bay, most of them, my company is serving as the general contractor. And so we're a big stakeholder, but we're also a big polluter. And blue tech hopefully is going to be a part of correcting some of the intractable problems that we have in shipping. Energy production, 80% of life on Earth is found in the ocean. The ocean is of a paramount importance. You get it. Whoops. Let's try this. Sorry, little learning curve here. So maritime, by footprint, maritime is the most carbon efficient way to transport goods around the world. However, we're big polluters. 4% of the world's carbon emissions comes from shipping. We're hitting right whales. We're hitting other mammals. We're transporting invasive species in ballast water. These are, as I mentioned, really intractable problems. These are the things that keep me up at night. And I recognize that we couldn't regulate our way out of these problems, and it was a big catalyst for me wanting to found Sea Ahead to see how we might be able to tackle this with innovation. So, what is the blue economy? It's really a relatively new term used to describe the ocean and intrinsic values generated in and around the ocean. And it's generally businesses connected to the ocean. And I love that when the World Bank talks about the blue economy, they talk about it through the lens of sustainability. Again, a really important theme. So the ocean economy is growing, 1.5 trillion. By 2030, 3 trillion. Huge opportunities, in particular for Rhode Island. The market's changing. We're seeing really the consumer driving a corporate focus on sustainability, and I think that's a huge, I don't want to say a precipitator, because when you say precipitate, it's a bad thing, but a catalyst, I think, for some of the positive changes that we're seeing in this area. So what about Rhode Island? It's estimated that Rhode Island blue economy is valued over $5 billion and produces more than 36,000 jobs. And on the end, Annette, your reputation precedes you on the startup side, and it's really, my passion. I think that really most of the problems that we're going to solve are going to come from the fertile grounds of innovation that are in the startup communities. So nice to say that in a place like Innovate Newport, right? Cluster. I think arguably we have one of the world's densest concentration of blue tech capabilities. And at Sea Ahead, we're seeing lots of startups coming out of Boston, but then coming to Providence to capitalize on the blue economy assets that we have here, in particular URI. So in the nuts and bolts of blue tech, the thesis that we have at Sea Ahead is, years ago, Sandra Whitehouse said, geez, are we in Rhode Island, are we marine trades, are we fisheries, are we ocean science, are we offshore wind, are we ports and shipping, what are we? And I think what we understood is that what people were most excited about was the blue tech piece, the innovation, the disruptive technology that was coming. And so this is a great graph. I love how it shows all of the verticals from hardware, tech, clean tech, chemicals, and bio-based solutions, and how they hit all the important verticals in the blue economy. Open innovation, my legacy company, Moran, at 54 years old, I am the youth movement. That is a problem for my family company. And so I realized that I needed to look outward, and I worked with the universities. We did a lot in academia, but it was really the fertile ground, again, of the startup communities that have given Moran a first look. And I believe it's should be a really important part of our economic development strategy here, not only to grow these companies, but to give our existing legacy companies an opportunity to change and adapt to the new, global challenges. So the ocean is important. What are we going to do? Let's get through the slide quickly. How do we get more startups? A cluster is a cluster. We'll talk about this later on, but these are all the things, and the important part about clusters is that a lot of people are part of the clusters for different reasons, but they all gain from each other. We had a great company out of Boston called OnVector that we just brought to Rhode Island, who has a plasma gasification technology that we're looking to, treat ballast water with. And working with Commerce Rhode Island and the Innovation Voucher Program, we've got something with legs. Here are the startup members that we have at Sea Ahead, really exciting. Many of them, working in Rhode Island, some of them from Rhode Island. So what can we do? I think, and I'm sorry that Innovate Newport is out on there, but we need to gauge with the international, even as a defensive mood, we need to deal with the international clusters because there's just so much collaboration going on. And here are just some of them that, that we work with. So that's it. I don't know that I did it under 7, but I did my best. And I really look forward to the conversation with everyone later on. Have a good evening.
You totally did.
Great, thank you so much. And I know you've got a lot of questions, so just hold those for a moment. We're going to go next to Christian Cowan. He is the executive director of 401 TechBridge and a senior executive, more than 20 years of experience in technical manufacturing operations and marketing in the IT, networking, energy, and textile industries. He brings both domestic and overseas hands-on manufacturing experience to the University of Rhode Island Research Foundation, Polaris MEP's parent organization. He most recently served as the center director of Polaris MEP. Christian earned his BSEE degree from Villanova University and his MBA from the University of Rhode Island. So without further ado, Christian.
Thanks, Annette. Without trying to be nice, honestly, I'm a bit humbled. Annette and Jason and Erik are incredibly knowledgeable with an incredible amount of experience in this specific area. So it's a bit humbling to be up here. So I appreciate it. I am going to talk a bit about 401 TechBridge, talk about how it started, how we got to where we are and where we're going, and how we fit into this whole blue economy potential here in the state. 401 TechBridge was essentially conceived about 4 or 5 years ago when Polaris MEP, who I've led in the past, was helping support manufacturing companies. We worked very closely with the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association to help figure out how we can get programs to grow the composite industry here in the state. That evolved at the urging of Senator Whitehouse into really opening up space where companies and academia could come together and physically work on R&D projects together to accelerate the economic growth of those companies and jobs associated with them. We talked about composites and its really similarity to textiles. They kind of both start from a cloth, and implications certainly in the composite world on the marine industry, boats on the surface and boats below the surface. Back about 4 years ago, the Office of Naval Research heard what we were proposing and said we would really love the Navy to participate in this. And so it has turned into really a dual-use opportunity, a dual-use initiative to really support technology commercialization. So the Navy, as Senator Reid has said publicly, the military actually is really looking for ways to accelerate technology faster than traditional ways inside the Department of Defense. So how do we take non-traditional companies with technology that don't traditionally serve into the military, take those technologies and get it into the defense supply chains, and how do we use those same products? I was with one of the senior members of the Office of Naval Research, and he said we need also for those products to develop and iterate in the commercial field as well. So 401 TechBridge was born as an initiative specifically advancing technology in the material space. what that meant, getting information from academia and government and industry, is we need a space where people can come together and work on those very unique problems together. So 401 TechBridge has executed a lot of programming in the past year, and we are building out space here in Portsmouth. It's not incubator space, not accelerator space. We've got that in the state with RiHub, so we're very happy to be partnered with Annette and RiHub to be able to incubate and accelerate companies. But this is really lab space, where people can come in and work on problems that they can't really work on anywhere else. Some examples of projects that we've done in the past, and this gets to all of our partners here. So we have executed what's called prize challenges out of the military. So the Navy has come to us with challenges. They have awarded money to companies to solve very specific technical challenges. One of the ones is vessels that can go to the very low depth, high pressure without cracking. The Navy couldn't really solve that problem. We were able to very quickly connect into companies that could solve that problem quickly for the Navy. So that has been successful in us translating business into these composite companies from a technical perspective. We continue to iterate on these prize challenges and expect to do a lot more. We had, Mary Johnson's here, Mary has executed prize challenges and materials challenges with the University of Rhode Island. So we've taken private companies and connected them into researchers at URI to advance their products. How do we, again, sponsor, help, take small companies and connect them into resources that they would not have without us here? So good examples are Flux Marine, TVX Aero, Nautilus Defense. We've really connected them into professors to faculty to advance and iterate their products faster. So we're trying to do that both in the commercial and the Department of Defense perspectives. Going forward, we have accelerator projects where we're partnered with Mass Challenge. We're trying to identify blue technology startup companies where we can help, connect them into resources to advance their companies. Mass Challenge has obviously got an incredible program. We're partnered with them to take companies through their program and then out and accelerate them when they exit. This graphic here shows that we certainly don't do this alone. There's a lot of partners that we have really focused on our execution of technology commercialization. So finding funding. So again, that's examples of the materials challenge and the prize challenges. Advancing technology. So we are partnered with companies, Synedia, Polaris, to really take companies to the next level, accessing expertise that's connecting into the universities that I had mentioned, and then growing the business, really accelerators, partnering up with CIC, with Mass Challenge, with the Textile Innovation Network. So again, in our very core competency, we are trying to take technology, make products out of it, get it into the market faster. When you look at what that means, we've partnered with the Department of Defense and private commercial companies. You can think of small undersea UUVs, right? Undersea, unmanned underwater vehicles. And what that means both from a Department of Defense standpoint and a commercialization standpoint. Lots of stories, discussions around cable problems with the wind farm out in Block Island, things that could have been prevented or at least addressed a little bit earlier with new products, new technology that are automatically deployed out in the bottom of the ocean. So when we start having those conversations, and I start, luckily for me, socializing that with people like Jason Kelly, we start talking about the unique aspects of Rhode Island and what the blue economy means. So, Narragansett Bay is a very unique place. We've got Newark on the East Bay with test facilities that are available. We've got the Bay campus at Rhode Island with incredible technologies and capabilities, all the way up into Quonset and then to Provport. And if you look at the unique capabilities of our water and our geographical land features, it starts becoming very obvious of the advantages that we could take, that we could implement here in the Bay that are different than Massachusetts, different than San Diego, different than Miami. And it was Drew Carey, who's sitting in the back, that is the reason that that triangle actually extends in the ocean. Conversations with him about really extending that smart bay into a smart ocean, right? There's great things that we can do when we start deploying sensors, monitoring, gathering data, not only inside of our bay, but just outside of our bay into the ocean. So when I look at how 401 Tech Bridge connects into this whole ecosystem, it's really about providing tools, providing connectivity to advance technology in the small companies, into the military, and out of the military. And really, when we look at the physical map, it gets really exciting when we start having the conversations I get to have with Jason and Drew and Annette and Erik and everyone. There's tremendous potential of using technology to advance our state and actually advance the country and support the ocean, the important ocean that Jason talked about for a while.
Thank you. Again, hold those questions. I will allow myself to have one question here. Mass Challenge, 401 Tech Bridge, just announced you are doing a blue tech track. There are people in this audience that I know for a fact are interested in applying. When does that come live, the application? Do you know?
The application comes live on September.
Okay, so soon.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent, excellent. All right, great. So we're going to now introduce Erik. Erik is a really, really interesting person as well. He's the Director of Defense R&D Initiatives and Operations at URI, and he most recently left a really interesting position that we're going to talk about here too, which is the Executive Director of the National Institute for Undersea Vehicle Technology. And again, when you look at LinkedIn, he left in August, and it's August. So he's charged with building stronger relationships with greater collaboration, increased research and innovative programs across the university to leverage its incredible interdisciplinary expertise to tackle large national security challenges. And as I said, he previously was the executive director of NIUVT, a partnership between academia, industry, and government to build and develop innovative workforce and accelerate the research, development, and transition of key enabling technologies. There, over 2 years, he led the organization to grow from 3 to 37 million, and that's research funding. And before that, he led leadership positions through the defense industry, the nonprofit sector, federal government, et cetera, et cetera. So here's what's interesting. Erik spent 4.5 years over 2 administrations at the White House as a Defense Science and Technology Program Examiner at the National Security Division of the Office of Management and Budget, providing budget and policy oversight. In the private sector, he led security cooperation and partnership programs for the Perduco Group, a Dayton, Ohio-based research program. He has over a 24-year military career. So Colonel Erik Brine has flown C-5, C-17, C-21 aircraft in over 50 countries, including over 100 combat sorties over Iraq and Afghanistan, and served at every level. So basically, he continues to serve today. I know recently he was out flying planes, which is pretty cool. He continues to serve today as the Vice Wing Commander of the 514th Air Mobility Wing. I'm getting goosebumps, that's pretty cool. At Joint Base MDL, leading over 2,300 airmen and 17 squadrons. So, all right, I've said enough. So, without further ado,
Thank you, Annette.
we won't talk about what's going on in that sector right now, but please take it away.
I appreciate it. So if Jason was setting the table and Christian delivered the meal, I'm here to clear the table and break all the glass. I think it is still surprising to me every time I get invited to one of these as an Air Force pilot by trade to talk about undersea technology. So I appreciate you all being willing to listen to anything I have to say and allow me to sit up here with these wonderful folks. Molly, thank you for having us here. This has turned out to be a really phenomenal facility that you guys have. So thank you. As Annette mentioned, I'm here in my new capacity as the Director of Defense R&D Initiatives and Operations at URI. And I want to take what Jason and Christian talked a little bit about and kind of shape it in how I look at it from my university perspective, my national security defense background, and also as a kind of budget and policy person. That's kind of where my head is at. And I think that there's a really interesting role for academia to play in this space, especially in this really unique geography that they mentioned. And I'll kind of start off by explaining how and why, what the role is, I think, there for the university. So first off, I mean, what everybody has pointed out is there is amazing capability in this space. Phenomenal organizations, like Jason mentioned, in this really densely packed space. But one of the things that it's maybe lacking is, that is coming along now, is this ecosystem organization. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces and organizations in this space, but how do we all work together? How do we make sure we're all, to use a blue reference, swimming in the same direction, and not at odds in any way, shape, or form with each other, and trying to advance the ball. And an academic institution has the perfect means for that, to serve as that convening organization, to serve as a collaborator. It's not a for-profit business, right? Especially if it's a state university like URI is. So it has actually a mission of economic development. It has a mission of expanding knowledge. It has a mission of conducting research, and that's useful to everybody else in this space, whether you're in the private sector or whether you're in the public sector as a government individual. So it makes academia a really great partner and an awesome place to perform that convening, collaborating role. It's also obviously a natural workforce developer. Our product is people, and all of you need us, people, right? I'm pretty sure there's nobody in here that doesn't have an organization that runs without people. So we're here to help you with that. And we need constant interaction with the organizations that we're providing that workforce to make sure that we're putting out the right product in people and developing them in a way that's most useful to all of you in the organizations and businesses you serve. And we happen to specialize at URI in doing things in this space. So we're a good partner. And we're doing a lot more to invest in that capability. Christian talked about that a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about more coming up. I have half the slides of Jason, but I'm probably going to talk twice as long until they cut me off. The university also is a pretty big place compared to most organizations anywhere here. So they've got phenomenal capabilities, amazing $1 million pieces of equipment and brand new facilities. And part of our job is, how do we make them available not just to our students that end up being the product, but also all of you in your organizations? Because you all pay for them as taxpayers. How do we make it most accessible so we're doing the most public good, in some cases for profit, some cases for government, but definitely always for community? How do we ensure that we make sure that those pieces of equipment and those facilities are networked? So we're not duplicating effort in places, that we're able to share and not invest in the same type things, but when it's necessary, connect with places that are not here, so we don't have to make those same investments. And how do we bring that interdisciplinary expertise that we naturally have in a university to help any organization, but particularly advance the blue economy here? As I know these folks will tell you, it requires all types, right? Where you need researchers and engineers, but we also need lawyers. We need business people. We need agriculture, right? These are all things that you're going to find in great proximity to each other at a university. So the more you can get those types of folks with those expertise working together early on, the more we have innovation, the more we have new and better ideas. And when I put on my budget hat, the more we lower the cost and barrier to entry for those types of technologies. That's super important. From a pretty pragmatic standpoint, the university is pretty great because we can create access to a collaborative investment environment, right? We create access to capital in a few different ways. You've seen on a few of these slides anything from things like SBIR and STTR that the university is there to be a partner in. They can partner in other contract ways with private sector companies going after public sector funding, and also serve as a place that you can actually get work done as a public or private sector organization. One of the things that I know a lot about and spent a lot of time in my career on is how funding flows in the government. And that's a little bit challenging if any of you have worked with government. I sound by the smiles and smirks I see out there, a few of you maybe have, right? It's hard because they work in a pretty challenging fiscal cycle where money comes late and has to be spent early. The university doesn't have that challenge. We can hold money at the university level for longer than the government can, even when they, in some cases push it off to us to do research or to conduct programs. And we have the ability to mix it with private sector funding, really creating interesting collaborative ways to make funding go further. So when you see down, I think a couple lines down there, I talk about aligning IRAD and research and development dollars. So whether it's DoD research and development dollars or NOAA research and development dollars or NSF research and development dollars, we have the opportunity in a university to pair those side by side with private sector investments. And sometimes those are in-kind investments. Sometimes that's subject matter expertise. We did a lot of that in NIUVT and are going to continue to do more of it. There are a lot of different ways you can take things of value and bring them together. And a university is an amazing place to do that, especially a public university, because a public university is also, when it's useful, the arm of a state. And that can be helpful sometimes. Sometimes it's not. And in those instances, you also can leverage things like a research foundation that can be more flexible. And we have all of those things inside a university. And lastly, something we're working on specifically at URI that is really interesting in this space is our ability to do secure work. At the secret level, we're just getting into that space, but definitely at the CUI level, controlled unclassified information, all the work we do inside of NIUVT so far has really been in that space. So we're taking security to a different level than most academic institutions do. And that's in part because of the relationship we have with the Navy, but it also is important to a lot of industry partners. Obviously the ones that are in defense industry, but everybody cares about their intellectual property. So if you have something of value, you should really care about security, and we have a pretty important focus on it. We're also looking at developing a secure email access capability and making that available to our small and medium-sized business partners. That's one of the most exciting things I think I'm working on, and it would take a little bit longer to explain, but I'll talk to you about it later. If you're interested, I'll tell you more. Let's go to the next slide here. It was important, I was told everybody has to have a map. You saw everybody had a map, so I brought a map too. But to the point, we have so much going on. This is a super dense area. We've got great universities. We have great defense industry. If you're talking about the undersea environment, this is really where it's at. And this slide in particular is one of those reasons. I've spent a lot of time at high levels of government looking at all sorts of ecosystems and technology areas and domains, and I'll tell you there's no place in the country that has this level of legacy investment by a service in a specific domain. The fact that we have NUIC representing all the research and development, the Naval War College right next to it with all the strategy and policy for things that are undersea and maritime. In less than a 60-mile radius, we also have the Undersea Warfighter Development Center in New London and Groton, and the Naval Submarine Maritime Research Lab, and SMRL. We also have the Coast Guard Research and Development Center. We also have the Coast Guard Academy. Like, that doesn't exist anywhere. If you're working in hypersonics or space or cyber or whatever it is, that's spread out all over the country. Like, you're gonna fly between states, everybody's got a little piece of it. We're like covering the whole waterfront, no pun intended here. That's pretty impressive. So we need to build on that legacy investment that the Navy's had. And we've got awesome academic credentials in this area, right? This is not even getting all the way up into Boston, but just in our own backyard here. And then we've got phenomenal organizations, everything from nonprofit groups to FFRDCs. Highest concentration really of FFRDCs probably outside of Washington, DC. Right in our backyard here. And aside from all of those important things and organizations and institutions, we've got phenomenal people, right? So I'm just looking around this room, and this is like a typical Rhode Island thing I've come to learn. And I'm new to Rhode Island, and I know like half the people here, right? Mary and Susan and Molly, Lee, Linda, I saw Beth back there, Dee Dee from URI, Evan, Valerie, Drew, like you guys all represent amazing organizations that come together regularly and are working together in this place. And it's pretty phenomenal that I think you all pretty much like each other. That's weird. Mostly, right? That by itself, I mean, believe it or not, is an incredible capability. This place has awesome people and organizations. And these things are all important, these like institutions and facilities, but the people are even more important. And the fact that you can come together, and Rhode Island is a small town, and you can just make stuff happen fast because you have relationships and know each other. And I've been here for like a hot minute. These guys have been here for a long time, and I'm sure they know everybody here. And you all know them. That makes everything more able to happen and super accessible. So that really does make this a very special place to make these sort of things happen. So it's important to organize and figure out how it is we all do this together. At NIUVT, these are the research areas that we think about when we talk about what undersea technology looks like. And there are more. This is just a few of them. But I put the slide up here because it's important to recognize how broad we need to be thinking when we think about undersea technology and the applicability of all these things in different spaces as well. So in order to advance a blue economy, in order to really get to the heart of some of these technology issues, we need to embrace and build the right expertise in all of these areas, but we also have to figure out how we all connect and how we make sure, because we're small, we can be fast and effective, but it means we also need to be coordinated to make sure that people are organized and working on the right things together and not too focused on doing the same things. And not only do we have to focus on what those things are, we're still early enough in the game that we need to figure out where they are. So this is the New England Maritime Research and Innovation Capability Study. Again, it's one of the things we've worked on in, yeah, this is a terrible name, I know. This is one of the projects actually that I lead in NIUVT, and it is all about identifying all of that strategic capability, infrastructure, equipment, and eventually actually subject matter expertise and capability, and make it more accessible, and maybe even find a way to make it more usable. It's those sort of things that we need to do that help us organize on how we really approach a blue economy and get after these blue technology challenges. That's going to make this place so successful, because not only do we have the stuff, but we got the people. And I think I'll leave it there.
Awesome. And, I do want to open this up for questions. We have about 20 minutes left, which is awesome. So, I want to win. I want Rhode Island to be the center. And wow, you just kind of pointed out all of the reasons why we should win. And I love the idea that, size is our strength and that we all know each other, and that means we can go faster. And I couldn't agree with that more. We don't have time for messing around here because, as, Jason pointed out, it really is about the planet. So, all right, I'm going to open this up for questions. Yes, and so, how should I go there?
Hi, my name is Angela McCalla. I'm actually one of the Newport City Councilors that represent the First Ward in Newport. And my question, it really has to do with how can locals here in Newport be able to gain access towards these jobs or these opportunities that are being presented today. Especially I'm thinking about our high school, we have a NACTech program, as well as we have institutions such as CCRI. We have a ton of individuals and locals that are looking, for that job trajectory or that opportunity to be able to go into these sectors.
Anybody?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. There are, I think there's multiple layers to your question and the answer associated with it. There are programs that exist today, largely supported by the Department of Labor and Training through Real Jobs Rhode Island. So some examples are the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association runs programming for STEM programming for boat building to introduce kids to boat building and the marine trades, etc. So there's programming through associations like the Marine Trades Association. Sanidia is another one that provides workforce training for youth. Actually, 401 TechBridge just partnered with Newick to run some STEM training for youth. So it starts at the K through 12 level, really exposing kids to trades, opportunities, and it's not just saws and sanders, so to speak, in the trades, but very higher level jobs, because a lot of these jobs are becoming more sophisticated with robotics, digital capabilities, etc. So there's a K through 12 aspect, and then there's a continuing education where we're partnered with CCRI to launch programs through here as well as through the Warwick campus. That's some of the stuff that's going on currently in the state, and I will say I'm a huge fan of the way the Department of Labor and Training and Real Jobs Rhode Island have approached that, because they identify the workforce intermediaries like Polaris MEP and RIMTA and Synedia to really reach into communities. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about here are, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff is still programming to be crafted, right? If you look at aquaculture degrees at the University of Rhode Island, what's going on in the Bay campus, there's incredible technology and incredible workforce opportunities coming out of the Bay campus with aquaculture and marine exploration. But some of these technologies and implementation of what we're doing on in the Bay is we're still crafting, right? What we're talking about is there's an evolving industry around blue technology, the blue economy and technology specifically, that is, starts at the K through 12 level with exploration and introduction, and then we're going to continue to craft programs with the University of Rhode Island and CCRI and Brown University, as well as smaller local providers like Fab Newport, frankly, to pull programming into there. Steve Heath does a fantastic job over at Fab Newport. So it's a complex answer where a lot of programs exist already. We really need to do more and connect it into industry more.
Awesome answer. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to take a crack at that too. It's good to meet you, Angela. I'm actually a Jamestown council member, so we should chat later on a totally different topic. But I will double down on what Christian said. There are some actually really great programs here, and evolving ones. There's so much that is being done now in STEM, and I can tell you there's a lot more that's in the works, like Christian mentioned, and it is across levels. So it does start at the K through 12 level. What I see on my end more is at the bachelor's degree and up through doctorate level. And one of the things that we're pushing at URI, and I'm really trying to influence, is that I'm all for education. I'm not from academia. I never claimed to be. I think universities need to be about getting people jobs. I want a bunch of smart people. That's great, as long as they're smart and employed. They should come to me, get a good education, and go out and get a job. And you get jobs when you're at universities by partnering with organizations to get things like internships and work-study programs, and frankly do research, because research can pay for your school. If you're a U.S. citizen and you're at the University of Rhode Island studying in a STEM discipline right now, and you want to get a master's degree and you're a good student, I can get you free school for like as long as you want to go. There are a lot of great opportunities there. We just need to point people in the right direction to where those jobs are in the future. So it has to be that conversation at the higher levels of education down to the K through 12 to make sure that people take interest at that point and know that there are actual jobs at the end of those education paths. That's I think the critical point is that conversation.
I just want to say too, you said such a critical thing in terms of we're talking about access to resources. So unless they know you, councilman, right? Like how do they get connected? I think that's more of the trajectory, because you're only as good as who you know, and there are some people who don't know about that access and need that higher vibration to be able to understand what you're saying.
That's right. It can't just be your guidance counselor, right? That's for a couple generations now, that's what we've depended on, and that's kind of your access point outside of your high school. We need to find more entry points into that level of education so people know what the opportunities are, because that's when you're starting to think about your career, right, and what you're going to be when you grow up.
And I will say we've had tons of discussions about this, and I think that we'll continue to talk about it and get harder. A lot of what you're talking about, a lot of what we're trying to do is connect these programs into community, which is difficult and takes a long time, but is very intentional for all of the stuff that we're doing. So currently we integrate with community colleges and K through 12 schools and Chamber of Commerce's, but we're trying to integrate more and more with community programming so we can expose more and more people to it. So, because you're exactly right, you can't count on people knowing us. So the programming, and it's coming down from the federal government. We've seen a lot of it. The importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, and how you very intentionally build that into your programming. And those words are easy to say. We're in the middle of really trying to implement it, and it takes everyone to make sure that we try to get that programming into the people that it most benefits.
And some of these things are pretty new in Rhode Island. Okay, so the good news is you're kind of here early. RIHub, I would say, sort of started November 2019, so we're not even 2 years old yet. And 401 Tech Bridge again. But as an example, RIHub is running Rhode Island Startup Week, just to put for all the citizens of Rhode Island, shine a light on all the cool stuff happening with entrepreneurs here in Rhode Island. Hasn't happened before. We're doing that October 18th through 22nd. We haven't had a chance to market that yet. It's just getting underway. But that's a good example. We, as Christian just said, it's actually difficult to get it out there into the citizenry. You're here. This is important. These kind of events connect us all up. But yeah, it's a great question. Anybody else?
So can I add on to that for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The important part too is it's even easier to do here in Newport, and it's hard, right? But how about reaching Cumberland and Lincoln
Oh my gosh.
and Central Falls
So,
and Pawtucket?
Just connecting Newport with Providence, we're talking about it. It's hard.
Right.
It's really hard.
Sorry.
And Dee Dee has something to add.
But,
It's like kind of relating to what Erik was saying earlier about folks are just connecting to what Erik was saying earlier about URI. So at URI in the last couple of years, the provost has funded this new initiative called the Launch Lab, which I direct, and we teach people there how to be entrepreneurs. And he's also funded another initiative, which I also run, called the Office of Undergraduate Research. So we give grants to students at URI to go do research projects, something that they're interested in of their own. So it's sort of taking it from the community level, like into state university, and considering that we are the state university, we really do often bring in people that are not officially part of URI to the programs that we do. And Annette's been a mentor in our program for years, and she knows that well.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can to connect up with Launch Lab, RIHub, so we're all kind of, it is hard to, stay connected, so. Anybody? Yes.
I hear that I heard a lot. My name is Annette, by the way, and I work in a very unusual kind of business. You're going to shake your head going, what the heck is she here for? I work for a company that designs e-learning, and we have decided that one of the things we wanted to do, partly because of some other work we do, is to develop a program that's targeted to educators, not students, they're second, but educators, because who reaches more students at a time? The person in the classroom, right? And we're in the early stage of that. So I just want to remind folks, it's not just students. And the educators are the ones who use the examples. They're the ones who convey the stories. They're the ones who share the information in addition to their parents, because they're not looking for careers on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or other things. So the classroom's going to be the place to start spurring some of that. We're very early stage in development right now, but our goal is a VR in very, very narrow scope right now. And our target actually is young women in high school, and particularly young women, but also students who are not readily, easily accessed by people. So to go both ways.
So I'll tell you that's absolutely right. When I was in the Obama administration, they focused entirely, if it was anything that was STEM related, it was focused towards educating teachers and resourcing teachers. If you were doing something that was STEM related and it wasn't funding teachers rather than students, it got the axe. And it's fallen a little bit out of vogue, but to your point, that's how you reach the largest number of people, is by making sure educators have access, because they're the ones that have access to students. So I think that's a really important point.
Skill bridge, bridging school skill building to the other side of the bridge, the employer, and their expectations, so that hopefully they can be maybe a little more realistic sometimes too, because this is the right place to say most employers want their new hires to walk on water, and I don't know anybody who can, their first day on the job, or their last day on the job for that matter.
That's great. All right, we have okay, why did I know you were going to ask a question?
You have a reputation, apparently.
This is a person you got to get to know.
hopefully it's a good reputation. But my question, I don't really need a long-winded answer, but my question is when you guys put up on the board or on the slides a bunch of areas where problems need to be solved, and when you're bringing everyone together and getting a lot of the moving parts to solve these big problems, how does one stay organized, or who is in the leading front of the charge of organizing the solving of that problem?
Yes.
So from
And he
from-
said, not long-winded. I love that. It's like,
I know.
no long-winded here.
Look, so I'm a businessman, and I have a passion for ocean health. So to me, the perfect intersection is, innovation that is going to solve these intractable problems, but we can commercialize those innovations, and we can. So there's a triple bottom line proposition. We've got, economic development. We have like commercial returns, and then we have other, societal benefits as well. So in my mind, looking at from the private sector, if we can find a way to put our best minds at creating innovations that solve these, like, so in shipping, I'm in shipping, and we're polluting with carbon emissions, and we're hitting whales, and we're invasive species, and, I can't sit in one more meeting about, UN regulations. I want to find the innovators that are going to do that. So that's how I lead. I'm not a policy person, or I'm not in academia, but I'm looking for viable technologies that scale, that have upside, and that are going to help the environment and help the ocean. That's how I look at it.
So how does he get a hold of you? Like that's kind of a good question, right? Like, or how do you, and by the way, you should introduce yourself, Kita, and what you're doing. Quidnick Fabrication.
Yeah, so my name's Kydell Fuller. I am a student and also an entrepreneur as well. So I kind of split those. I wouldn't say either of them is on the side because they kind of both take up the entire plate.
And where do you go to school?
I go to Babson College, so entrepreneurial businessman. I like
Great
when you
program.
said that. Yeah, it's awesome. It allows me to run a business called Equipment Fabrication, where we do 3D printing and 3D CAD design, and as well as learn on the side as well. So I get to learn from great people who are entrepreneurs, take classes about being an entrepreneur, and then also practice it at the same time. But yeah, so your answer, I loved it. It was great. And then it enticed more questions, which I don't want to give you all of them at the same time, but it seems
We can
like,
talk afterwards.
yeah, definitely. It seems like the process starts from many different areas because you had an answer, and then I saw the other two thinking they might have a different answer. But it's like kind of like a whirlpool that's going all the way around, and you want to try to jump into it, but you don't want to mistime your jump in, or else you'll end up drowning. That's what I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I will say, honestly, Jason was the first person for me that started opening my eyes to blue economy and the impacts with the meetings with Sandra Whitehouse. Jason's incredibly knowledgeable in this field in general, and also, being a businessman, a lot of what sorts this out is the economics at the end of the day. There's a combination of technology and business acumen that really, if there is a need for the technology and a use for it, and people that are willing to purchase it, right, that is a key part of it. And for sure, Jason's the most knowledgeable one in the room for that. So, and Sia Head's done an incredible job of highlighting, accelerating companies in that space to those points.
So you asked who should lead, right? That was the, and that's a hard question, but it's incredibly important. To my point that you need to organize an ecosystem, and you need to move it all in the right direction. And if you don't have somebody leading it, it's not coordinated. It's not moving in the right direction, right? If lead and nobody follows, you're just a guy out for a walk, right? In order to lead, you have to be recognized by your peers or by your group to be out front and to be setting those goals or keeping folks on track. And typically that means you need both authority and funding. So you've got to find a way to bring those two things together in one place and decide as an organization, as a state, as a region, as an ecosystem, whatever it may be, who or what is at the front of the ship, who's driving, because somebody has to drive. Typically, the easiest way for that to happen is government, to be in the leadership space. But if government isn't necessarily always the right person, place, or thing to do it, then they really need to pin the rose on somebody or something to lead. and provide some of that funding and provide that authority so that everyone else can kind of get in line and work together towards the same goals. Because if you don't have that organization, it's doggy paddle. It's not the butterfly, right? And we need to be out there winning the 400-meter butterfly. So we got to get together.
I feel like each of you, to complement what you're saying in response to his questions, you're each extremely mission driven. I think that's part of it too, is that you're all here on a panel to talk about the ecosystem and how you're relating to each other, but each of you have your own very specific mission. And when you're mission driven and loyal to that, I think like it's somewhat easy to lead because all your decisions come from that mission. Would you agree?
Yeah. Absolutely.
We are at the half hour, but I see one more question. That's it. You get the final.
I'm Susan Johnston. I'm CEO of a story and technology company called New Media Film Festival. Our STEAM and our doc categories has allowed me to be around Captain Paul Watson, Shark-wise. Through the United Nations and some other programming, I discovered how devastating, and I'm sorry, Mr. Moran, I'm adding a nightmare to your dreams, sound, and how it's so disruptive to the communication and the sensory systems of the animals or mammals or the species in the oceans. Is there anything in place to deal with that? I mean, it's not just ships. I mean, it's the wind, energy.
That's for a whole other Thursday night. There's some incredible, movements happening both in the commercial sector, in the academic, in defense. On the West Coast, they've done some incredible work. There's some super work happening here, right in Rhode Island at Newark, and a marine acoustics. So yes, it's a very big problem. It's a salient question, no pun intended, but yes, there's a lot happening in this space. There's a lot of potential, I think, for solutions that are actionable, in the very near future.
That have a problem that can't be solved. I have 80,000 people on a newsletter list, and I'm happy to say who can help with this.
Yeah, that's what we call the startup the reverse pitch. So instead of the young innovators or old innovators coming through with their solutions, that industry or others talk to the innovators and say, these are the problem sets that we have. So I spoke earlier about what the problem sets are in the maritime industry, and I think, many other verticals within, like aquaculture, for example, has huge problems in terms of disease, and, they don't have the type of sensors that they need. The defense industry has. It's this cross-fertilization that we're seeing in the blue economy, taking traditional industries that have technologies born on land that are being applied now to marine issues. And that's part of, I think, what's great about the cluster, and part about what we're all cultivating here in Rhode Island is those, these atypical relationships between disparate stakeholders under an umbrella to have 1 + 1 = 5, right?
Great, thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Molly to wrap up. Thank you all. You've been a wonderful audience. We've loved having you.
I reiterate that. Thank you for coming. And next week is our final Blue NU Summer Speaker Series session, which will be on, the topic is looking ahead with Toby Stapleton. So we hope to see you there. Thank you for coming.